and gentlemen, it's showtime!
Skullgirl! What the hell? Hey! Live action me! Don't draw me like this! It's weird. Yeah, that's more like it. Now then, I think fighting games are crazy rad. The precision, the memory, the dexterity, the reactions, the mind games. All with the thrill of battle and desire to reign as champion, where an arcade or a living room can transform into a gladiatorial arena. Sometimes when I work on videos, I watch all sorts of high-level play, like speedruns or fighting game tournaments. You know, Capcom Cup, Combo Breaker, freaking Evo. Now, despite my burning passion as a fighting game enthusiast, I am goddamn terrible at most of them. What can I say? I'm a scrub. I'm no Superman. Fighting games are very complex in how they are designed and how they're played. They possess the biggest priority to mechanics and have distinct fundamentals, but you can't expect someone that can barely swim to dive right into the deep end, right? And this is why most people who pick up fighting games for the first time don't end up continuing to play them, which is a shame. Usually most games have clever level design to act as a tutorial. Oh man, these coins are like in an arc and they're guiding you to jump. That's such good game design, woohoo! Fighting games cannot do that. So how are you supposed to teach your player to get good? Well, Skullgirls is probably the most accessible 2D fighter I have ever played, and it doesn't skimp out on its depth and its mechanics, and it proceeds to push the fighting game genre forward. Fighting games are like a Rubik's Cube. They're complex, and there are some people that know all the systems and rhythms to master it, but most of us just fiddle with it and then we put it down. And I seriously think that the old arcade roots of the genre could be the problem. I have noticed that a lot of fighting games are stuck in this archaic design structured from days gone by, and as a result, they haven't changed much. I mean, there was once a time when fighting games didn't have a training mode, one of the biggest advancements in the genre, and now it's like, duh. Of course a fighting game should have a training mode. The game industry has grown out of the arcades, but a lot of fighting games haven't. Can you imagine a game charging money every time you lost it in a fighting game? Wouldn't that be so dumb? The old fighting game cabinets were originally designed to steal coins from kids at the arcades, and so it's a common trope for fighting games to have a furiously difficult last boss, designed to tease the player with victory, holding it above their heads like, "Oh, you're so close. Do you want to continue? Well, you better whip out your coin purse, you little bitch!" Now, being difficult isn't the problem, but when your hard mode enemies are easier to defeat than the easy mode boss, then that's a pretty warped difficulty curve. I shouldn't have to get up to the last boss and be like, "Alright, that's good enough for today." Because the truth is, players are learning at the right pace, but they don't feel like it because of that aggravating boss. So they get saltier than McDonald's fries dipped in the Red Sea and don't play the game again. No, seriously though, fuck Shao Kahn, fuck Alpha, and fuck True Ogre. The hard mode CPU in Street Fighter are simple, but on easy mode, the boss Seth is stronger than Popeye after abusing his spinach supplements. The difficulty curve is all out of proportion due to this archaic design choice. Think about it though, why would you want your player's first impression of the game to make them feel like shit? It's a shame, because Street Fighter is a fantastic game. I'm all about those Hadoukens and it isn't even a case of get good, because you're not even invested to learn the fundamentals of the fighting game. This is where Skullgirls tags in. The game's earlier difficulties ask you if you know the basics, and to what degree. Can you analyze a situation, defend, and proceed to punish accordingly? Space yourself out to minimize risk and maximize your damage. How do you approach an enemy once you are knocked away? Can you read the few frames of the beginning attack and react accordingly? The last boss, Mary, is notoriously hard in later difficulties, but at least the designers had the courtesy to have her easier for the people that have only played the game for like an hour. Skullgirls takes it a step further by teaching the fundamental basics of a fighting game through the character design. A lot of fighters have just straight up too many characters, and that's understandable after 20 years of fan dedication. But for a new player, where do you start? Who do you pick? Having a huge roster is great because it gives players options and a whole bunch of things to learn, but also it can prove challenging to have meticulously designed characters in order to maintain the balance. Skullgirls maintains a concise roster where characters have unique tools which allows for all sorts of experimentation. For instance, let's go through the story mode of that Slipknot-looking lass Pinwheel, where the first fight is against Peacock, a character who benefits from zoning, meaning that you will try and stay a distinct distance in order to dish out attacks and slow down the enemy approach. Now this can seem like a bit of a tough matchup for the first fight, since Pinwheel seems to have a slower moveset. Well, Pinwheel has a unique trait. Quarter circle kick allows Pinwheel to fly, making her approach game much easier. If one couldn't figure this out, her aerial attacks reach really far, so you can get at least a couple of hits in. Either way, you're learning about spacing, which is understanding the distances required for an attack to hit, all while lowering the risk of getting hit yourself. And this is just one match. So let's go back to Mary, who acts as a very strong final exam. You know, like most bosses should be. This Skullgirl takes skill, girl! A bunch of her moves have audio cues to let you know when to defend against her volley of attacks, but she also puts you in a variety of situations that you have to adapt to. She'll either send you across the screen or back off really quickly, asking, "Do you know how to approach me?" She will then send out moves with a big shadow to come and attack you. Will you run forward to avoid, or use up your time to ensure a defensive position? What moves will you attack her with when you get there? Mary is a solid last boss for a fighting game, but god damn, she is so hard on later difficulties. Like, ugh. But you know, at least the developers gave us the courtesy to learn how to play first. So Skullgirls has a very structured difficulty curve and a very accessible roster. Hell, even inputs are designed to be simple, with special moves being as simple as a quarter circle and 2 buttons. You won't have to spend hours in training mode just practicing one move. Keeping techniques easy to execute means that a person is less likely to drop inputs and can actually concentrate on the fight. There's no more pausing in the middle of a fight going, "Oh dang, how do I do this move? Just let me check this essay's worth of inputs." I'm just trying to play the game, not hack the Pentagon. Keep it simple so then people can concentrate on the fight, and Skullgirls does this. But is it baby's first fighter? No. This game has more depth than my stomach in an all-you-can-eat dessert buffet. And a good display of that depth is in the Skullgirls training mode, which is completely transparent with the player, giving them everything that they need to help them if they're willing to learn the game. Listen, I'm talking frame data, hitboxes, hurt boxes, and even a hit stun meter, among a myriad of tools to help players break out into that higher level of play. And even if you aren't the type of person to use these tools, you still have to admit it's pretty considerate of the developers to make this information accessible. For instance, you could learn that Beowulf's jumping hard punch puts in a long hitbox in front of you, so it works as a great spacing tool, helping set up walls to defend yourself or assume stage control. And this is just one move from one character. But you gotta remember, if you use it too much, you'll become predictable, and you'll grow bad habits if you're dependent on those moves. There is also a simple tutorial which acts more of a showcase of unique aspects of characters, building from the basics step by step to show off some hidden potential. So let's move on from training mode, because we want to learn by playing, right? Let's look at some other tools that make these femme fatales freaking fatal. First up, there's that frisky feline Misfortune, who has quick, nimble controls. Her unique trait is that she can take off her head and use it to attack, helping put pressure on opponents or to set up combos. It forces your opponent to reconsider their spacing and help push them back, since now they have to consider attacks coming from different angles. Misfortune's head games can instantly change the flow of battle to suit her pacing by keeping the enemy on their toes. But be careful with it, since a lonely head can also take damage, so it's a huge risk versus reward mechanic. Let's break it down play by play in this match against Valentine. I send out my head and trigger a response from Valentine. I then jab and use the head again as a follow-up attack. I reposition myself to trap Valentine and use the head to start up a quick jab combo. Valentine escapes and jumps back, using her Hacksaw's giant hitbox as a defensive wall. She then mixes things up and jumps forward to attack, but since Misfortune's head is missing, the attack doesn't connect. I miss the punish, which disjoints my hurt box, allowing me to dodge another attack. I punish again and Valentine misses her get-up, positioning herself above Misfortune's head. I jump to cover her options. Valentine's low kick barely reaches over Misfortune's head, allowing me to get the punish and take the round. And I only won that round because I knew how to use Misfortune's mechanics and a bit of dumb luck. But everyone in this game has these options. Another character is the deadly diva Eliza. When she has enough super meter, she can switch forms to Sekhmet, the parasite that hosts her body. Sekhmet is all about mixing things up on the opponent. Eliza's moveset is more broad, set on big wind-up moves, and her movement can be very viscous, while Sekhmet is bloodthirsty for action and attacks with fast-paced ferocity. She even has super armor, meaning that she won't get stunned from attacks and goes right through them if you have the health to compensate. If Eliza has the super meter to sustain her, Sekhmet is something to be feared. She will be on the opponent's mind, and as soon as she comes out, they will instantly go on the defensive. But just like any asset, be sure to use her effectively, or you'll be the one that's left bloody. And finally, there's Parasail, who attacks with her Parasail. Parasail acts as a solid foundation in a fight and is excellent at keeping your opponent at bay. But her most useful aspect is the ability to shoot projectiles and have them act as stage hazards. It's great for setting up defensive walls and establishing stage control, as well as covering your opponent's options. And that makes it a lot easier to predict their next move and exploit any slip-ups or weaknesses. Parasail is an extremely versatile character, being able to handle both long-range and close combat in a very graceful way. Almost all of her moves are great spacing tools, and she brings the pain and makes it rain from your eyeballs. Every character in this game has a purpose, and each has a cool asset to take note of. You can explore the basics of each character with specific tutorials that are there to just say, hey, did you know about Big Band's parries, Squiggly's focus attacks, Valentine's toxins? How about Beowulf's hype mechanic? Well, now you do know. You have to experiment and learn with all that these characters can offer. And in Skullgirls, the depth can go even further when it comes to team battles. Since you can have up to 3 players on each team, it gives you a lot of options. Maybe you have one super strong single character, a dirty pair, or even a straight up gang war. You may have more strength with less characters, but you have a limited amount of tools at your disposal. And it makes it a lot easier to set up combos when you have more characters throwing out attacks. But if your enemy reads you like an open book, then both your characters can be punished for it. You don't want to have a team of 3 for the sake of having another character. It's all about understanding your character's weaknesses and finding a way around them. But what I have said isn't exclusive to just Skullgirls. Each fighting game is more like a disciplined martial art. Street Fighter is more like boxing, spacing out your opponent and trapping them in a corner. While Marvel vs. Capcom is more like a Gundam anime with your screen filled with bright lights and explosions all the time. And Tekken is a circus. I really want fighting games to grow. They have a very meticulous design process in comparison to other games. And among designers, they are considered the hardest games to make. Seriously, do you know how hard it is to design a game to get players to teach themselves how to play with no level design? A Link to the Past is considered by many to be the near pinnacle of game design, and it has an arrow crafted in the tiles pointing to where you have to go. With that being said, and fighting games being one of the most challenging things to create, the Skullgirls team have done an amazing job of not just providing the little things to help hardcore fighting game fans, but have also made the game more accessible. The team have a focus on transparency, constantly updating the game, actually having the decency to release patch notes, and even letting players play the games before the animations are finished. Because yes, people did have to draw this entire game. I don't have the authority to say that Skullgirls is objectively the best fighting game because of these reasons, but it is setting a better standard for all fighters, and it is easily the most welcoming game in the genre. It is made by players for players, adding tiny things like color palettes, which are homages to fighting games, to being able to pause a game and going into sparring mode to show your friend how you did that awesome move. Most fighting games are made for, well, exclusively people that play fighting games. But how are you going to go about sharing that passion with others? How would you get a new person to play at your level besides going to the training room and learning a sequence of button presses? With the ever-growing fighting game community and the genre becoming a very prominent spectator sport, I think that Skullgirls works beautifully to provide context for new viewers, as well as teaching the fundamentals for new competitors. You know, I may not be that good, but after this, I'm starting to feel confident enough to say that I might have some potential.
Just the way it is. Things will never be the same.
Hey there, thanks for watching. I assume you enjoyed the video on account that you've made it this far. If you were mildly amused by it, you can show your appreciation by clicking the old like button. It seems like a silly thing, but it really helps out content creators. If you think what I do is neat and you want to see more, then you can always subscribe so you can get notified whenever a new video is fresh off the grill. And if I haven't swayed you just yet, you can click one of these 2 other videos. If you like some game design analysis, I did this video on Brutal Legend and how game mechanics can break traditional genre conventions. And I also got this other video on how Kirby is really silly, fun, and cute. A huge shout out to my friend Todd for being a really swell sparring partner. He makes some top of the line stuff, so you should go check him out too. And finally, I have a question for you. Do you play fighting games? And if so, which ones? Besides Skullgirls, I personally play a lot of Super Smash Bros. Melee, but I'm getting pretty into Street Fighter recently as well. If you don't play fighting games, I hope that this video helped pique your interest. And maybe you can check out this little book called Mashers to Masters. I left a link in the description where you can read it for free. Some of the people who made Skullgirls helped out with it, and it helps teach the little nooks and crannies of fighting games. Anyway, thank you so much for your support. I'm gonna go smash a car with my bare fists.
Why you so bad?